Hey guys, quick video on the Briggs and Stratton, like the INTEK, the slant cylinder overhead valve Briggs and Stratton engines, their carburetor. Just can go over how to rebuild it really fast. First thing you're going to do is just remove the air filter cover, remove the very neglected air filter, and then there are just two 8mm 5/16 screws. Just remove the shroud and it'll have the little vent hose, the PCV valve type hose attached. So just set that aside. And then if you haven't shut off the fuel, if you have a fuel shut off, shut it off. If it doesn't have the fuel shut off, just take a pair of like vice grips or something and pinch the fuel line, otherwise you're going to lose all your gas. Let's take off the fuel line. Be really careful because this thing is plastic and you can snap that off, and if you do, there's a little bit of a nub there. Sometimes you can get the fuel line to connect to it. They do sell these little plastic pieces. I don't know the part number off the top of my head. Or you can get away sometimes with JB welding them. Just make sure, just nice and loose. And pull it off. And then there's just two screws that remove the body of the carburetor. And then the governor linkage rod is going to want to come out with it. Let's remove this. You got a little throttle plate right here. The gasket. We'll leave that on. We'll leave that off. But you got a little spring. So we'll remove our little spring. And then our rod just pivots out. That's how we remove it. Okay, I'm going to be using carburetor cleaner, so I'm going to put on my safety glasses because you get it right back in your eye. I sprayed off the outside real fast just to remove any dirt. And now I'll remove the bowl nut. And this is also, your bowl nut is also your main jet. Oh, you didn't see it, but there is some debris down there. So we'll spray out the bowl. We'll just let that sit for a second. We'll take off the float. We'll take out the float pin. Take off the float with the needle attached. We'll set that aside. There is a gasket around the outside edges. It will swell up, so I don't like to spray it too much. So be careful. If it does pop right off, just take it off. If not, it's going to rip. I mean, if you got a new one in your kit, take it off. But 99% of the time, you don't need a kit to rebuild the carburetor. Okay, so the problem this one was having was it was surging. So that generally means an idle problem. The idle circuit is located right at the front. Well, you got one right here. You got one behind it. There's a little brass plug. And what this does is that feeds air back through here, and then gas is pulled up through the bottom. They're all mixed right here. The air and gas is atomized, and right behind this Welch plug there's a couple little holes that go into the bottom of the carburetor. So to see if that's clear, what we're going to do is we're going to force carburetor cleaner through it. And you can see that, well, now I got it off. It was spraying through those little holes on the inside. Just make sure it's spraying through all the little holes. If not, the easiest way to clean them is to take a piece of this is just standard copper wire, and it's stranded, you know, for all automotive uses. And so you can just take a strand off, and you can actually bend that. And if one is plugged up, you can bend an angle on it, and you can take it back in there, and you can run it in and out of every single one of your holes. And copper's soft enough it's not going to enlarge in the hole, because you want to make sure you don't make that hole bigger. Okay? And then in the bottom here, we're going to have the other side of our circuit. Right there. So you got one that's like an innie and an outie, and you got the outie one, and that goes to your idle circuit. And I can see that let's get it on there. So that sprays up through there, and it should also be spraying and it sprays out there. So I got that whole passage cleared. It's probably just something minor, but that's cleared it up. Again, if it's plugged up, we can take our copper wire and we can run it down in there. We can run it through the bottom up in there. And now we have our emulsion tube, and that's this other little one right here. and that does virtually the same thing, but it's for the high speed. And what happened is air gets pulled in through here, runs down here, comes down in here, gas gets pulled up in through there, they mix in this main tube area, and they go right up into the body of the carburetor, and you can see a little brass plug right where the tip of the red thing is right there. But there's a little thing that protrudes. That is your emulsion tube, and we'll just spray right up through that. And it does both. It sprays out through both of them, which is good. That means that my passage is clear. Spray back through this one. Great. That is the main, and then you got one more over here, and this is just like a vent for the, that just vents the fuel so the fuel can actually drop down. So that is the main carburetor cleaning besides the main jet. We got a main jet here. There's 2 pickups on each side, and then the middle is your metered jet. Just spray through that and then make sure that's clear. You can take your copper wire, copper only. If you use metal, like from a wire brush or something, you run the risk of enlarging the hole, and then you throw off your, you throw off what it was set to, and you can mess it up. You can mess up how it runs. There we go. Okay, now the only other thing is if your engine was, if the carburetor was flooding, like gas wouldn't stop, generally that means, these floats rarely go bad. If there's gas in your float and your float's bad, if it sloshes around, but generally they never go bad. But generally your seat leaks. And I won't replace the seat unless it is leaking. This one is not leaking, so I won't replace it, but I'll show you how. Inside there is one of these. It's just a little donut, okay? A little round O-ring type thing. And the easiest way to get that out is actually use a wood screw. Just take a wood screw, set it in, just with your finger, a little bit of a turn, pull it right out. This little thing will come right out. Take your new one, set it on there, take your needle with you, slide it in. Sometimes if you spit on it, get a little bit of wet, it'll slide in easier. Don't use too much. Don't use carburetor cleaner really on it, because carburetor cleaner will swell it, and then it'll throw off where this closes. It'll close too low. So I really don't like to spray through there with carburetor cleaner at all. And if you try to pull it out, you'll ruin it. So don't pull it out unless you need to. So if it doesn't leak, don't worry about it. But they look just like that. This one's actually for it to come say, but they're identical. The little donut things, they swap. Tip of your needle. Wipe that off nice and good. Reinstall it in the float. Set your float and your needle back down at the same time. Take your float pin. Reinstall that. Take your bowl. Install your bowl. Take your main jet. Make sure it has a little gasket still on it. That's a clean carb. That'll run just as good as if you put a $20 carb kit in it, and it didn't need anything. But if you want to, go for it. Now, I like to test my float now to make sure it's not going to leak. And what I do is I put my mouth on here and I blow, and it should blow because the float's dropped. And then I turn it upside down, and I shouldn't be able to hear even the slightest hiss. If you can hear the slightest hiss, then your float seal, then your needle and your seat's going to leak. So I do that just to make sure it's not going to leak. So let's put it right back on. Fire up. All back together except for the air cleaner. Got a new fuel line on there because the other one was just cracked and crap. So let's turn it on to fast. Always choke. Always choke. There we go, running like new. One pole, but did you doubt it? Idle's good, runs good, so it's ready to go. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe, and hopefully somebody out there in YouTube land, needs a carburetor rebuilt and will watch this and helps them out. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon. 65 forward. Bye.